So with this panel, I will start with Dr. Tang. To tell us a little bit about what you believe are some of the most significant new tools that both in surgical or your practice in recent years, and what are some of the opportunities and concerns that you have had about these new tools?
Yeah, I think the Vice President really hit things on the head in his wonderful remarks this morning, in that he alluded to all these amazing tools that are high cost. Not all of them are surgical, of course, but I'm a surgical oncologist, so I'm interested in both diagnostic tools to diagnose or suspected cancer, to treat cancer, including fancy tools like endoscopy, endoscopic things, laparoscopy, and then increasingly robotics. And then, of course, these molecular therapeutics that are incredibly expensive as adjuvant treatment or neoadjuvant treatment or treatment instead of. And so those are all incredibly amazing things. Like things that yesterday we heard, 40 years ago, there are diseases that we could not treat that were lethal that now can be cured. And many of them are cancer, some of them are other things. And so as surgeons, it used to just be surgeons, we just cut out cancer. We were the extirpative surgeons. We tried the best we could. We often would leave tumor behind, or we would try our very best. Now, you can really be curative in surgery, because with adjuvant therapy, with tools, with better precision imaging, with targets, we can actually not just be extirpative, but we can be curative in a team and collaboration. So I think that's just incredible. It's an amazing time to be alive in medicine and in surgery today. It's amazing. I think in that lies, and the other stuff we heard about, is the cost. There is an incredible cost to these things. A robotic system now costs upwards of $3 million US a year now, the state-of-the-art intuitive system, and more, plus additional disposals in every case. I had the opportunity to be a visiting professor at National Taiwan University and then at Sangong University over the Christmas break, so just 2 months ago. And it's amazing, these incredible surgeons. When I was there at Sangong University, the dean, I don't think he's coming today, but the dean of Sangong University surgeon, his name is spelled, I think, but it's actually said, right? But he's amazing. He met me, gave me all his presents, and then went to go do 2 Whipples, one minimally invasive and one open that day, the dean. And I went to tell my dean, who's a medical oncologist, for 30 years. You know the dean at Sangong is doing 2 Whipples today, but he's not using robotics because he's probably that good a surgeon that he can just do minimally invasive surgery without robotics. But also, they told me at National Taiwan University is so expensive. They're good enough, they don't need to use the robot. But whereas in the United States, we have my surgeons at Boston Medical Center, which is a safety net hospital, that are jonesing to buy more and more robots. So they have these form letters that are nasty. They're written by the representatives. They say, as chair, Dr. Chang, would be malpractice for you not to buy several more $3 million robotic systems. So how we control those costs while giving our patients the best of care, I think, is the amazing advances are the amazing thing, and tied to the flip side is the cost and how we control them. As we had very astutely were discussing how we control those costs.
Thank you. I'm going to extend the same questions to the other panelists, but the Vice President was here. He was really impressed with the presentations and the conference. And he said, I wish I could stay longer. I mean, he has obviously other engagements in the afternoon, but he really wanted to stay here instead of going to the other engagements, just so that you know. But Dr. Neglas, your comments on new technology, what you see is.
So with respect to AI, the current world, I'll speak about radiology, the current wave of AI is mostly detection and triage. So finding nodules that might be missed, finding pneumonia that might be missed, finding hemorrhage in the brain that might be missed. The problem with those technologies is that there's a certain rate of false positives that all these algorithms have. And so the radiologist then needs to pay special attention to each of the false positives, make sure that it's not something significant, that takes extra time. And so, as a result of that, there have been headwinds. There has been difficulty with these first wave of AI startup companies. Each of them has maybe 3 or 4 algorithms. They're not being purchased at the same rate, and there's not a willingness to pay for those because they don't bring efficiencies and cost savings. So I think, like in many technology areas, the need to deliver a return on investment is still true, even for AI. I do think the next wave is coming. So these newer technologies, language models, drafting of reports that save radiologists time, that it improves productivity. It may not reduce costs to the system, but it certainly takes cost out of the system that benefits some of the stakeholders in the system. So I think that's going to continue to be the story as to how these technologies are adopted. And we've seen that in the first phase of the market where there's been difficulty with adoption because there has not been a true ROI for many of these algorithms.
Shulman?
Thanks. I think at some level, it's up to us. But, we have this opportunity now with this amazing technology, and everyone's struggling with these cost, quality, and access issues. This technology's got to help us solve that problem, right? That's the definition. And so we have to force that economics onto the technology rather than the other way around. So I think it's all brand new. It's interesting. Our, student class I had in last year were the last students who actually were ever going to write their applications because they applied before ChatGPT. So now, so we have to recognize how recent this is. And I think it's a real challenge, as Kurt was talking about, like, what is their business model? It doesn't come with these. As he showed the slide of 100 different companies in the radiology space, that makes no sense. Right? I'm not gonna buy this algorithm from you, and now how am I gonna compare the performance of your 2 algorithms? So how are we gonna organize the market? And so we could bring solutions, forward, and there's still an open question. But I think it's up to us. I think we have to hold the technology field to account in this case. It can't be an open checkbook. We've heard a lot about some of the economic challenges here. We have the same economic challenges at home. We have to have solutions. We can't just keep writing, bigger and bigger checks. And this technology, there's at least a pathway easy to see that the technology should help us with these, fundamental economic issues.
So we have the Deputy Director General of the National Health Insurance program here, and you had mentioned that every health system has 3 problems: cost, access, and quality. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
And,
Well, I don't know. Ask her.
and Dr. Tang had mentioned she works in the safety net hospital, and for a lot of the technology adoption, we're just worried that it's only going to be affordable for people who are in the upper middle class or upper class in some cases, and there's going to be leading these disparities, and certainly the out-of-pocket cost for national health insurance program for our patients has just been increasing over time. And same, with the U.S., we have a lot of very expensive therapies. And, what are some of your thoughts? And I know, Dr. Engels, you want to add to the previous discussion?
Maybe make a comment on Kevin's comment and then go to this question. So I always say I want to buy 40 algorithms from one company, not 1 algorithm from 40 companies.
Right.
And so I think there is some consolidation needed. And also what you mentioned when you talk standards, right? So to make it easy to plug and play with these algorithms, I think is going to be a key part of that. With respect to this safety net, I think AI's new technology cuts both ways. So on the one hand, there's the possibility possibility of upskilling individuals. So where there's a shortage of providers of a certain type, these algorithms can really help paraprofessionals or non-specialists to come up to the level of excellence. There's some pretty good data to show that that really happens across a whole range of tasks. So that's a plus. On the negative side, because these algorithms are based on data, the need for training data, liberating training data is costly. You have to de-identify it, you have to clean it and curate it and make it really AI ready. And so the have institutions are the ones that are going to be able to do that. And so the algorithms that are going to be trained are more likely to get the right answer for those higher resource places. And so I think there's a need for something other than the free market to help, whether it's NGOs or something else, governments, to make sure that we have ways of making that training data available so that you can build algorithms that work in places that have lower resources.
One of, we didn't talk about it today, but one of the issues is data architecture. Not anything anyone ever wanted to talk about in medical school, but Kurt was talking about large data sets. And right now we organize healthcare data at the institution level. And so each institution only has as much data as they serve. For 20 some odd years, there's been a little bit of a debate that I've totally lost about different architecture. So if we organize the data around the patient rather than around the hospital, you can actually think about recruiting all the patients, get access to all the data. And so we're seeing some experiments in South Korea, Singapore, and India, different data architectures that could potentially lead to a way to make it easier to build these algorithms and also to deploy digital services to the patients directly without having to come through. So there's some interesting economic models that, based on core principles, we might want to go back to.
I have a kind of crazy idea. Taiwan has immense potential in terms of collecting data. You have a national health service. It is potentially the most democratic place in Asia, maybe in the world right now, I don't know. But you have an educated population, and it's a wealthy country. You have the ability to be able to leverage this and create the national data set for AI or whatnot, and monetize it for the benefit of Taiwan's population. I really do think this. I was actually thinking about this because I came here to try to help in December to help some of the Taiwanese surgeons organize a chapter of the Society for Surgery and Elementary Track, et cetera, to participate more because they're being left out given how high they are academically in the academic enterprise. To try to advise them how to publish them on top journals, all this kind of stuff. But Taiwan, I'm a health services researcher. I love data. Taiwan has this ability to create a data set that the world would come calling for, because Taiwan, Asia, right? The whole, because China can't do this. Like these other countries will have a very hard time organizing their population and organizing the healthcare. We all know that the healthcare in mainland China is anything but communist. It's so spread out. But Taiwan, you have this national health service, and care is beautiful. So I think I'm sure much smarter people thought of this before. But specifically regarding AI, because when you turn on the computer at Mass General Brigham, they say that they basically are leveraging their brain power of their doctors to do AI, which they're going to, Mass General Brigham is going to monetize that. So why not do that as a country for the good of the population? I'm sure you've already thought of this.
Maybe we could ask the Deputy Director General of the Taiwan Casino.
Thank you for bringing discussion. I agree with you totally with all my heart. We are a national health insurance with 99.9%. Our Vice President just mentioned 99.7% coverage. It's now increased up to 99.9%. 30 years of national health insurance, single payer, a very elegant system of paying, and our administration fee is only 2% compared to 35% from the United States, 16% from Canada or the other countries. So it's a very elegant system. But we are facing the tremendous financial challenges as our Taiwan population has reached the super Asian population 1 out of 5 will be age 65 and above. So now the government plan to increase our investment in healthcare this year. So we have a lot of healthcare plan this year. We are about to announce, but now there are some chaos in the Congress. And then the second I want to point out is the data. I think we have a tremendous potential when it comes to data. But actually 2 years ago, the National Health Insurance Administration had been sued by the Human Rights Organization about whether our patient has the right to drop out the system and how we utilize that. So now we are going to have a Taiwanese version of GDPR. The GDPR in Europe, I believe you are familiar with that. But that will be very strict about how government is going to utilize all the data. So now it's on the process of everything. So what you mentioned is tremendously helpful for me and for Chinese medical professionals and also for government officials. But there are some issues that we are trying to solve, and there are a lot of potential we have seen in this system. Thank you very much. And if you don't mind, may I bring one more question to Professor Schumann about the administration fee? Because in Taiwan, all the doctors are complaining to me about the fixed price because we have a very simplified, simplified maybe budget system. So we have one procedure, one examination, and only one fixed price. That is how our administration fee is level, only 2. But in the U.S., it's almost the exactly opposite way. So I want to see how your view on this and what's your advice to Taiwan.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, when we did the work in Canada, Canada's administrative costs were too low. And the story we had was the chief physician at the Ontario Physicians Association, their son needed a procedure, but the payment for that procedure hadn't been updated in years, and so no surgeon would do it. And so that was a measure that was too low. I think the opportunity now is actually to, some of the work we've been doing is to think about algorithmic payments. So we have 10,000 different payment codes for doctors. There's no reason for that. Part of this is if we're collecting the data, if we have the electronic health record or we're collecting the data somewhere else, I don't need a numeric version of that data. I don't need the doctors to code that data. So I do think there's an opportunity to re-explore from the ground up how you could build something that's very simple to administer, that gives you a little bit more creation in terms of payment structure.
I was struck, it reminds me as I was listening to Kevin's talk, and he talked about how inefficiency, systems, the inefficiency is magnified by technology. We're already seeing in the United States companies who are selling products to hospital systems to use AI to provide the best possible claim, and then other companies selling to the insurance company AIs to figure out the best possible way to deny the claim. AI versus AI, it gives me a headache just thinking about it.
Actually, I have a proposal, it's sort of based on this conversation. I think Taiwan should organize a AI task force, AI healthcare task force. Maybe in Academia Sinica with Vice President Chen, and basically like a task force that thinks about business model, how to reduce healthcare costs. Because if you, like Kevin said, if you give us 2% of the national health insurance claims fee, everybody would jump on this problem of how to use AI to improve health, to reduce waste, to reduce costs. And we need a national strategy and to avoid political sort of bickering. You could first do it at the Seneca research institution, and that would be a model, I think, for a lot of the countries in the world thinking about this kind of thing. So please bring it back to the Director General of National Health Insurance. So we have already alluded to this, but we can't talk about data without privacy, and particularly in a large health system or systems. And what are your thoughts in terms of mitigating the risks as we bring different different imaging, different text, different social health, determinants of health data across the board, and across maybe multiple institutions. How do you even organize that? Some of them are financial data as well. So, and what's the sort of what's the play thinking in this area?
Well, first of all, I think that in the broad context, patients' perception of AI in health has changed recently. And I think much of that is not the responsibility of AI in health, it's really what's happening with AI outside of health. And patients are, the public is receiving messages about how AI might affect their lives that makes them concerned and worried. It used to be that AI in health was kind of an unallied societal good for making healthcare better than they are. But now I think people are concerned more about these privacy issues. In the US, we've had the HIPAA law, which is quite old now, but I think still serves us fairly well. We had ethicists look at this issue of how we're managing data in the United States, and what we concluded was that the health data, once it's been used for clinical care, it really should be thought of as a form of a public good. And so then the question is, how do you manage that public good? It's not owned by anyone, it's really, we're all stewards of the data, patients should have access to the data. But I think it really comes down to the basic things like cybersecurity, de-identification. So our electronic de-identification methods have not been that good. My laboratory spent a lot of effort on that problem because we wanted these, we talked about the 20 data sets we made public. That was a significant challenge, as you might imagine, with de-identifying those data. We had both an electronic de-identification and a human review. So I think the combination of all of those things will help. And I think we need some more public education about what we are actually doing with AI in healthcare, because I think the more that the public learns about what we're actually doing, I think the more they will become comfortable with the direction we're taking.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different things. The first is the first use case of data has to be to take care of patients. And as researchers and health service researchers, we talk about all these great resource uses. The first question is, how do I make sure the data are available so that when you go to the doctor, all your data are available, easily accessible. So I think part of that's starting there. And then the second thing is on the back end, on the research side, we've talked today about how do we build models. I don't really care about your data. You're mixed in with a million other people to build the model. So Kurt alluded to something before about federated data models. There's a lot of interesting ideas about if I understand the architecture of the data, I never need to actually get your data to build the model. So at a national level, that would give you a solution that would protect privacy, still allow you to build models. That would be totally state of the art, cutting edge. And then the other one is, at least in the US, the issue was people were using other people's data without them knowing. And so the solution to a lot of things is consent. And so, if you ask me if you could use my data for cancer research, absolutely. But thank you for asking. So I think we've gotten to this habit of not asking patients to participate. There are some groups that are not going to participate, and we'll just have to deal with that. But I think an opt-in allows you to protect the privacy and a simple consent, tips you over, especially if you, it depends on how you architect it. But I think we can engage the public, especially Kurt talked about and Jennifer talked about. So if we want Taiwan to lead the world in creating this technology, like you all have a chance to participate. Just click the box here as a picture, as part of your citizenship. You know, and as a patriotic duty, that's a really interesting proposition that, you know, we just have no authority people.
I'm gonna ask you
I just want to make a comment about the consent process. When we talk to ethicists, and we're very concerned about patient consent for the use of the data from these models, they always say consent is not a piece of paper. Consent has to do with the patient actually understanding. And I think the consent process in the US is broken today. It may be a patient who's coming in for a colonoscopy, and they're sitting at a desk with a clerk, and the clerk passes the machine for paper and says, you need to sign all of these. And they're not equipped to answer any questions I might have about how the data is going to be used or anything else, but I'm right there signing away. And that to me, yes, we have a piece of paper that says the patient consented, but I don't think that that's really a true consent process. And I don't think that the signature really matters as much as the patient really understanding what it is that they're agreeing to. So I'm not an expert in the area, but I just say I think there's a lot of room for some innovation in how we handle patients. I think this notion of that Kevin is saying that I think will be really important.
Now, I think as a surgeon, I actually do consent people for things that get killed all the time. Consent happens in the office, despite the fact that I have them sign the piece of paper after having a whole discussion in the office. And then it's never scanned into the chart at the right time. So in the office, before, on the chair of surgery, in the office, right before the OR, they page me and said, we can't find the consent. I said, it's actually scanned in, but they're not capable of looking it up, so I have to come down there again and make them sign a piece of paper again. But regardless, piece of paper, the two pieces of paper are not the consent. It is the conversation, the ongoing conversation that happens, is it that they remember that. But I think that's analogous to what's going on with the large data, because in the end, they want to be able to consent and know they consented. But in the end, what you care about is the patient or the person. You want to make sure that you're not going to be hurt by this. It's not going to be revealed in some way that's going to come back to haunt you, that you're not going to be able to get health insurance in the United States, or that will embarrass you if you're talking about something that's used to, like whatever it is, that will embarrass you in some way or hurt you in some way, or embarrass your newspaper. You want to make sure of that. And then perhaps you want to make sure that there's not some enormous profit on your particular cell or gene, or if you're HeLa or whatnot, that you have no idea about. So those are the two things people care about. And honestly, I don't think that these processes are going to prevent that, because right now we have people get revealed on, I think what people put on Facebook on the private side, they have no idea online, I guess, but what they have no idea that it's going to be revealed. People are very silly about what they reveal. And we have somebody who is unelected who now has all of our social security numbers and all of our financial information in the U.S. Treasury. It's much more likely to be hurt in those fashions in ways that we didn't consent to than honestly AI studying to make actually benign algorithms so things get better. But we have to make sure the process, the piece of paper, is done so that everybody in Taiwan knows that they're contributing to this patriotic effort.
Well, thank you for those very thoughtful comments. I want to shift back to education. Prepare the workforce for the future. And part of that, I think there were a lot of questions about preparing an AI augmented workforce. And we're going to start with Dr. Schulman, because you have a course right now. You have a master's program, and you've been so thoughtful about thinking about business models as well. Can your course or something similar be a foundation to maybe send some of the folks here, the upcoming leadership, do your course or get a master's or things like that, or is there another way to do this more efficiently?
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, generally, you know, on kind of professional education, we think about kind of a pyramid. So, you know, who are the experts? Who are the next level of training? Who's the basic level of training? And so our master's degree is for mid-career professionals. And so it's more, you know, faculty. It's 1 year every other weekend. It's a combination of business medicine and technology with a year-long ethics program. And it's really trying to help people get the skills, the business skills to deploy, you know, solutions at scale, and also to understand the technology. we have different programs at Stanford. Ours is this applied masters. There's a research program. If I want to learn how to do the amazing models Kurt's doing, that's a different program, than ours. So lots of different choices. We need people with all those skill sets. My skill set would be worthless without his models, his ability to build those models. But I do think, to me, it's actually more how do I train the faculty? And because, and that's going to trickle down.
I'm gonna ask Dr. Nicholas the same question, but 2 years ago, the Ministry of Health sent a group of people to Stanford to train with me. And then I organized different experts to sort of depending on the area that they would like to. And it was in the summer, but they could spend a couple of months. And I want to hear about what the Dr. Nicholas program is, and not only the faculty from universities, but the training of Ministry of Health and National Health Insurance staff to think differently. I think is also a very critical component of health system transformation. But
I think AI education and clinician is a huge gap right now. I don't think that we haven't yet designed the right curriculum. Actually, we're just in the process of building a competency-based educational program for medical students all the way up to the most senior attendings. I think we need to do that. This will date me, but I'll tell a story about the beginnings of MRI. Okay, I was a radiology resident, and we all had to learn the physics of MRI, because if you didn't understand the frequency encoding direction and the phase encoding direction, the phase artifacts from the flow in the aorta could look like a tumor on the liver, right? So you had to understand enough about the physics of MRI to be able to interpret an MRI. Didn't mean you have to build an MRI machine, but you do have to understand it. And so that was then incorporated into the physics training that radiologists now receive routinely. And I think that that's going to happen with AI in medicine, that all medical professionals will have to know enough about how it works, the kinds of things that I talked about today, just enough to understand, okay, here's how it's going to go wrong, so that I can be less likely to be influenced by it when it's incorrect, and I can have the strength to go with my own judgments and use all the information that's available to me. What course I took, what book I read, what popped up as an alert in the EHR, what AI said, all those things, and I ultimately am responsible for that decision that I make. And so I think that education, again, we're just at the beginning. I don't know of any programs that are great yet. I know there are many development. As I said, we're doing one of those, and I'm looking forward to implementing.
I think we're very lucky at Stanford. We have so much expertise, 200 faculty and more, just looking at this field. And certainly Stanford is a major university facing the Pacific Ocean to Asia. So I think as you say, yes, please, Dr.
I was very impressed by Curtis' speech. As AI becomes sort of uninhibitable all over the world, all over the country, and especially Taiwan. So we're here in Taiwan and we're speaking. We ought to really examine this ourselves first, and with our such a bright chief around here. And I think we courtesy talk about the quality of data to be an important component of AI in the future. As you begin to see different things coming up from different places, different countries, different hospitals, we're going to have tremendous variation in what we consider to be the standard database. So can you speak about this? How do we make sure that when when this is commercially available and used, that we are assured of the quality of data before we even develop anything of our own to it.
Quality is an interesting issue when it comes to the development of AI models because real-world data isn't always of the highest quality. Fortunately, these neural networks are fairly robust. They are able to train to excellent performance even if the data is noisy and not of great quality. So we think about building very large data sets of the highest quality possible, and then building smaller data sets with outstanding labels so that we can measure our performance after it's been trained in these large, noisy data sets. Having said that, I think that Taiwan is actually in a very good position because you have, it sounds like, a data set that would be very useful to train these models. It's maybe not every data point in there is of the very highest quality, but again, that reflects the real world. So if you train an AI model on that data, it's then going to be able to process whether it's images or other information that maybe isn't always of the perfect quality, but nevertheless it will be able to understand how to draw a conclusion from that data. I think you're at the appropriate size. So if you tried to pool all the data from the United States, that would be just unwieldy, right? But I think you're at a good size where you can create models that are useful in Taiwan. And I think you're also in a region where if you create models for your own country, you can disseminate those to neighboring countries
So-
and be useful to them.
In response to your recommendation, having been in Taiwan for 35 years now, after medical school and then away for 25 years, I am concerned about the quality of data from Taiwan because if each physician is seeing 100 patients per clinic, 3 hours to 4 hours. No data is going to be very accurate. And so while you have the advantage, we also have the disadvantage because the style of the operation and the responsibility health professionals feel for their patients is not at the level resembling yours.
Yeah, I guess, first of all, I'm not arguing that you shouldn't try to make higher quality data. I think that that's a continuous journey, right? You should always endeavor to produce the highest quality data. Yeah, but I think ultimately, what you really want is data of known quality. So maybe come up with some regimes where you can understand which of the data that I have is of the highest quality, medium quality, low quality, and then you can decide, do I want to develop AI only on my highest quality data, and so it would only process the highest quality, may not have the right answer for, or you could eliminate some of the data from even being shown to AI, because this particular CT scan is of such low quality with motion artifact, whatever, I don't want to have the AI try to process it because that's going to do poorly. I think knowing the quality of your data is more realistic.
I have 2 examples that justifies my question. Number one, someone is pushing this low-dose CT, so-called LDCT for lung cancer, and I know that the quality, people in the audience probably will agree with me, the quality of the reading is questionable. And so if you are using that to develop an AI that is of broad use, that could be a problem. That's one example. The second example is that Jason actually recommended a youngster from, I don't know what level of training he was in, to come to look at lung nodules. And so he examined ours and examined maybe he thought that we were reliable. He wasn't sure that others were.
Yeah, I think, it gets back to this question of known quality. So you would say a low-dose CD is a lower quality image than a regular dose CT. And I'll give you an example from our own lab where we looked at, could we detect and classify the coronary calcium, that example I showed, on these low-dose CTs? To me, that's an empiric question. I don't know the answer to that. We might be able to develop an AI algorithm to do that accurately, or we might not. And we just have to see.
AI performance.
Pardon me?
AI evaluation of quality of data to be used.
Well, let's set that aside for just a moment, I'll get back to that. But what I'm talking about now is just, can we detect and quantify coronary calcium on a low-dose CT? That question is an empiric question that I don't know the answer to. It would take an experiment to determine it. And so if I know the quality of my data, I can say, all right, I know that I'm accurate on this high-quality data, but when it comes to this low-quality data, I'm not sure. I need to test that out. And I'm sorry, getting back to your original point was that I was going to get back to it, and I forgot your original question.
I think you answered it.
I did answer.
You
Okay.
didn't answer. I want to give the last comment to Dr. Tseng, because I think we're running out of time.
No, I was just saying as a health science researcher, services researcher, and you can answer this question, but I think it's maybe possible to create a data set based on high quality data and then test it on lower quality data to see the applicability, the generalizability. And so you can have the best of both worlds. When we create predictive models for risk of what this, that, or the other, cancer or surgery, we create it on certain data sets and then we test it on other data sets to see the robustness and the area of the curve and all this kind of stuff. I would imagine with AI that you could do that. You can see how it applies. So it's still a strength for your whole population, even though you know the quality may not be the highest, but it would be at, say, that's some cancer risk. Or you could decide to pick the very best data, which is perfect to create the AI data set, and then you're going to test it on the whole Taiwan population.
I hope this is just the beginning of discussion on collaboration and ideas for business models. And I want to thank all our panelists and our speakers from this morning and our panelists. And Dr. Tseng is going to give a fabulous talk this afternoon, so stay around. Okay. Thank you.